2 or module 2, whatever you want to call it, or chapter 2, will consist of 22 questions, right? Now, these are the learning objectives. These are the things that hopefully at the end of this module, you would have imbibed. So upon completion of this domain, an IS auditor should be able to evaluate the IT strategy for alignment with the organization's strategies and objectives. So what that means is that at the end of this module, you, Olachi, and your colleagues, your fellow trainees, should be able to evaluate the IT strategy of your organization to see whether it is aligned with the organization's strategies and objectives. Remember, alignment, align. If IT, whatever is done in IT is not aligned with what is done in the organization, then those organizational goals will never be achieved. So you should be able to evaluate and see whether the objectives, the missions, the visions, the strategies of the IT department are aligned with those of the entire organization. You should be able to evaluate the effectiveness of IT governance structure and its organizational structure. Evaluate the organizational management of IT policies and practices. Evaluate IT resources and portfolio management for alignment with the organization's strategy and objectives. Evaluate the organization's risk management policies and practices. Evaluate IT management and monitoring of controls. These are the things you should be able to do. And also on this second slide, the learning objectives also continues. For example, at the end of the training as an IS auditor, you should be able to conduct periodic review of information systems and enterprise architecture, evaluate data governance policies and practices. You should also be able to evaluate information security program to determine its effectiveness and alignment with the organization's strategy and objectives. These are the things you should be able to do. So as we go on, you take notice of these. Now, part 1 of this domain is IT governance. And then if you notice, we have done much of what is expected of us in this part 1. Whatever is left, we'll also consider them as we go on little by little. Now, these are the topics under this part 1. You have laws, regulations, and industry standards. You have organizational structure, IT governance, and IT strategy. We have done IT strategy at that time. We have done IT governance. We're also going to look at organizational structure today. Under this part 1, you also have IT policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines, which we're going to treat perhaps maybe today or not. There's also enterprise architecture and its considerations. We have done enterprise architecture 2 weeks back. Then also under this part, we have enterprise risk management, ERM. You have privacy program and principles. You have data governance and classification. These are the things that we're going to encounter in this part. Now, laws and regulation and industry standards, all right, has to do with, remember we said that one thing that is sure is that as an IS auditor, you must be on the lookout for those laws and regulations that govern whatever you are going to do. You should be able to identify them. You should be able to know them and then work in compliance with them as you go about your work as an IS auditor. So those are the things that has to do with laws and regulations, right? And here, ISACA has deemed it necessary to bring to your notice, even though you are not bound to know all these things, but just in case, these are laws around the world that an IS auditor, depending on the jurisdiction where you find yourself, that you are expected to know and comply with as you go about your auditing. You have the Graham-Leach-Bailey Act. You have the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. You have Children Online Privacy Protection Act. You have Children Internet Protection, and these are laws under United States. You have HIPAA, which has to do with Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, just in case you are trying to audit a firm in the health insurance industry. You have Federal Information Security Management Act 2002. You have the Popular Sarbanes-Oxley Act 2002. You have Sex Cyber Security Law. You have New York Financial Services Regulations. Those are laws that you as an IS auditor need to take cognizance of as you are auditing in the United States. Take note, in the United States, right? Now, if, for example, you are an IS auditor, tomorrow you find yourself within the European Union, right? European Union, now we are looking at countries in Europe, except for UK, right? Countries in Europe, except for UK and perhaps Russia, and maybe a few others, Belarus and all those ones. You are expected to audit in compliance with the following laws: Cyber Resilience Act, General Data Protection Act, that is GDPR, like I mentioned at that time for Europe. That is the subsisting privacy law in Europe, GDPR Act. You have Digital Operational Resiliency Act. These are laws in the European Union. In Canada, you should think of Canada's Personal Information Protection Electronic Documents, right? You also would want to think of South Korea. They have their own Personal Information Protection Act, like their own privacy laws. You also have you also have South African privacy laws, and then you have UK now proper. You have Ministry of Defense, DEFCON. You have UK Data Protection Act, I think 1918. 2018. That's the privacy law of the UK. You have also in South Africa, in Saudi Arabia, Australian privacy law, etc. So what happens is that Nigerian privacy law is not there, but if it is updated some other times, and ISACA is aware of the fact that we also have these privacy laws, you'll find them written here. So these are just examples, right? The list is by no means, exhaustive. So we also have
Australian data protection laws, are they not supposed to be part of this?
What?
I said Nigeria's data protection law. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I said our data protection laws, shouldn't they be part of this?
By the time you notify ISACA that we now have a data protection law, they will include it there.
Okay, so we have to notify them.
Yes. Let them know that we have the relevant laws now. They will include it there, right? Because Nigeria is, when it comes to IS auditing and security, all over Africa, this is where it started, Nigeria. So Nigeria is one country in Africa that has produced more IS auditors and other certifications of ISACA than any other African country. All right, so impact of laws and regulation and industry standards have to do with the fact that as IS auditors, as you are auditing, you want to be aware that these laws that we have just gone through will definitely impact on your audit. So you need to know them, right? For example, they will impact on the application of standards and procedures. They will impact on the alignment of responsibilities to senior personnel. These laws will impact on reliable staff background. For example, there are laws that will tell you that before
you said you need to know them. Did that in detail for the exam or as a practicing
IS auditor? Yes.
Okay.
As a practicing IS auditor, right? As you are supposed to know, as a practicing IS auditor, in your organization now, it is your responsibility. For example, you have a unit or you have a department of IS auditors. It is the responsibility of you guys in that department to search out all the relevant laws in your country, all the relevant frameworks and all the relevant standards in your country. You need to document them. And then you now need to evaluate whether these laws, people in IT department, or whether your organization is even complying with these laws in practice. And if you find out that they are not complying with these laws, it's your responsibility also to point them out and ensure that they comply with these laws, right? As it has to do with your jurisdiction. So if you leave Nigeria tomorrow and go to Canada, you expect to do the same thing. You're supposed to know these laws and how they will impact on your audit. And you need to evaluate or test for compliance by your organization, right? So you need to know how these laws, for example, will affect reliable staff background. For example, some laws will tell you before you employ an IT professional, an IT specialist, whether a database administrator, a LAN administrator, you are expected to carry out a background check. So if there is such a law in your organization, then you need to ensure that before HR employs such a professional, you ask yourself, have they carried out a background check on this person, right? So there are also laws that has to do with communication of process of procedures, compliance and monitoring, auditing, consistent enforcement, etc. So these are areas of application of these laws. For example, regulatory requirements for boards of directors, right? What does the law have to say about board of directors? If I refer now to Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, which is a law enacted in the United States in 2002 as a result of the corporate failures, like I mentioned to you last time, in all over around the world. Remember, I told you Enron went down, WorldCom went down, Parmalat went down, Cadre nearly went down, Afribank nearly went down. So they came up with Sarbanes-Oxley Act, right? Proposed by two members of the American Parliament, Sarbanes and Oxley. That's why eventually they call it Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Now, that Sarbanes-Oxley Act is supposed to regulate the activities of the board of directors of a particular organization. For example, a section of that law says before publishing the financial statement, audited financial statement of a particular, publicly traded organization, and publicly traded organization is what we call the PLCs here. So before the financial statement of a publicly traded organization is published in America, that the board of directors must sign off. That's what the law says. That's Sarbanes-Oxley Act, that they must sign off that there has not been any fraud during this period. If after signing off that there has not been any fraud, and fraud is discovered 2 weeks after, 1 month after, those board of directors have signed their way to prison. That's how serious it is, right? So you need to test for compliance of these laws, right? Now, governance, risk, and compliance. You may have heard of GRC, right? GRC is just, for some organizations, they prefer to bring governance, bring risk, and bring compliance under one umbrella, right? As like an integrated function. That's why it says the integrated collection of capabilities that enable an organization to reliably achieve objectives, address uncertainties, and act with integrity to achieve principal performance. So GRT, when integrated together, will enable the achievement or attainment of such objectives by an organization, and also address uncertainties and act with integrity, right? So GRC, the G stands for governance, the R stands for risk, and the C stands for compliance. So it's just telling you that organizations are supposed to govern their activities, especially their technologies now, right? And how do they go about it? You say they need to manage the enterprise policies, processes, and decisions. So governance has to do with managing the organization's policies, ensure that the policies are there in the first place and they are complied with, right? They also need to manage processes, day-to-day activities, those tasks, so that when they are performed effectively and efficiently, will lead to the attainment of desired results. Those are the processes. And then they also need to govern decisions, right? It is their right to govern decisions in an organization if those decisions must be complied with. Now, the R there is about risk management. And risk management has to do with, first of all, that you need to identify the risk, then you need to assess the risk, then you treat the risk, right? You treat the risk, you identify, people who are going to do risk management, right? But first of all, you need to identify the risk, then you assess or evaluate the risk, then you now treat the risk, right? Now it says,
So sorry, this
yeah,
risk management and governance, are they not speaking to the same thing?
they are
Because
not
it's
speaking.
based on,
Go ahead.
because in my mind, it's based on the processes and decisions that
I
the
know hear you
business.
again. It says based on what?
Is it not based on the processes and decisions that you now see whether there are risks involved in whatever we're doing in the business?
No, but we're saying that in organizations, risk management and governance are two different functions, right? But under GROC, they are handled together to ensure that organizational goals are met. Don't worry, when we treat risk management as a topic, you will understand further, right? But for now, risk management has to do with identifying the risk, right?
Okay.
That your organizations are vulnerable to, your organizations are susceptible to. Then when you have now identified them, you assess or evaluate their impact so as to be able to know their impact. It's when you have now known their impact, that is when you can now treat them. So there are more than these three processes that I have talked about. For example, you also need to even classify the risk. You need to classify the risk based on sensitivity and criticality. Then you now, do other things. Besides, there are some other things you need to do before you treat the risk. You need to carry out, some other activity before you treat the risk. Then compliance has to do with the ability of your organizations to adhere to laws, just as we were talking about. Example, Nigerian Privacy Law 2005. Example, Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Example, GDPR for Europe, right? So compliance has to do with the ability of your organizations to adhere to these laws, to regulations by regulatory bodies, to standards, and even to internal policies, right? So we're saying that when these three functions are handled together in like an integrated function, then organizational goals will be reliably achieved, right? Then also uncertain events or uncertainties, vagaries will also be addressed. That's what GRC is talking about. So it's an integrated approach to managing the affairs of an organization, putting into consideration governance function, risk management function, and also the need for compliance, right? So organizational ITs, organizational structure, IT governance, and IT strategy is the area that is of concern to us now, right? And most of these things, you and I have done it last time, with the day we started this module 2, right? Remember we did EGIT, and we said EGIT stands for Enterprise Governance of Information Technology. We have exhausted all these processes, right? For example, we learned that EGIT is a system in which all stakeholders provide input into IT decision making, right? We also said that EGIT is the responsibility of the board of directors and executive management. Responsibility of the board of directors and executive management. You also see the icons there. Icons for that first one is talking about communication, right? You provide input, I provide input into decision making as it has to do with IT. Then the second one there is a structure, talking about responsibility, right? And it says responsibility for governing an enterprise's information technology falls squarely on the shoulders of who? Of your directors, board of directors, and executive management. And what is the target? What is the objectives? EGIT is intended to ensure that IT aligns with and support the enterprise's objectives. Remember, no alignment, no attainment of functional objectives. So we talked about it, right? We also talked about the importance of EGIT. It says because of this place answer this question: why the current emphasis on EGIT? Answer: because of demands for better returns from IT investment. Yes, board of directors. Directors are increasingly demanded for better returns from IT investments. No company would want to spend 5 million naira. No company would want to spend 10 million naira on a particular application, and at the end of the day, they will not derive value from that application. So because of the demand for better returns from IT, then it has become imperative for IT technology to be governed and not managed. Two, because of concerns, and you can see, talking about returns, demand for returns, you're talking about naira and kobo. What directors are interested in is in the bottom line, the profit, what accrues to us at the end of the day. Are we going to get enough money to send our families to the Bahamas, naira and kobo as represented there? Then concern over the increasing level of IT expenditure, right, is another reason why IT must be governed. And that is where EGIT come in. Need to meet regulatory requirements for IT controls, yes. Right. There are a number of requirements from your regulators, number of requirements from your regulators, number of requirements demanding compliance by your regulatory bodies, right? So there's a need to meet these requirements. You can see the checklist there. You can see the checklist there. So there's need for all these things, and that is where EGIT must be governed by the board of directors and executive management, right? So, and the need for the selection of service providers and management of outsourcing, because as we're going to look at outsourcing later in this domain, so that you do not outsource your information technology functions to a company based on the fact that now the managing director's sister get them, right? Or I know the person won't get them. That is why it needs to be governed. So these are various reasons, just as we looked at them the last time, 2 weeks back, why it is necessary for information technology to be governed, right? So these are the needs. These are the needs, just as we looked at them. Now, we also looked at auditors' role in EGIT, meaning where do you come in? As I have always pointed out, whenever we are going through this training, wherever you come across information about where you are expected, what you are expected to do, then you need to pay attention to it. For example, talking about EGIT, you need to know what are your rules.
Please don't be annoyed.
No, for what? I didn't hear you.
So this EGIT, sorry, I've been looking for where I put the meaning of this acronym and I can't find it. Please just help me again. What is it?
Which acronym is that?
EGIT.
Enterprise Governance of Information Technology.
Oh, I see.
Yes, Enterprise Governance of Information Technology. You can write it down somewhere.
Thank you.
Are we good?
Yes.
Good. So we also looked at your roles as auditors in EGIT. And it says your roles is to ensure compliance with EGIT initiatives. So whatever executive management and the board have put in place, it's your role as IS auditors to ensure that they are complied with. Your role as auditors is to provide an independent review that facilitates improvement of IT processes and associated EGIT initiatives. So you also provide an independent review, of EGIT initiatives, and then report back to the people that sent you, the board and the executive management, right? And so for that reason, your function may cross divisional, functional, or departmental boundaries. You can now audit at any level, right? You can be sent anywhere. You can audit any department, right? And then report back to the board. Now, for that reason, the terms of reference given to you as IS auditors must identify the scope of the work to be done, Must also identify the reporting line to be used. For example, who are you reporting to? It also must identify your auditor's rights to access information, right? Meaning that it's not going to be a question of you from here to go to Enugu or go to Warri or to Calabar, and then somebody says you cannot pull data and then run your analysis. No. So as an auditor, your rights is already guaranteed. You must have access to whatever information you need to get the job done, right? So auditors should assess when they are auditing EGIT, you should assess the alignment of the enterprise and EGIT, right? There should also be an alignment between the organizational goals, visions, missions, and those of the EGIT. If they are not aligned, then that means organizational goals can never be met. You should also assess alignment of IT functions with the enterprise mission, vision, values, objectives, and strategies. Any deviations, any variances, then it means your organizational goals will never be achieved. So you need to assess all this. You also need to assess the achievement of performance objectives established by the business and IT functions. So you need to assess performance objectives. How are we going to achieve this? Is it being achieved? You also need to assess legal, environmental, information, quality, fiduciary, security, and privacy requirements, meaning are we complying with the laws, environmental requirements, information quality, fiduciary has to do with trust. Then you also need to assess the control environment of the enterprise. What kind of controls do you have? Do you have weak controls? Are your controls strong, hardened enough to withstand whatever that may be thrown at it? You also be able to look at inherent risk within the IS environment. Inherent risk has to do with those risks that are there as a result of the nature of the IT of your IS environment, right? Those risks are there. But don't worry, talking about inherent risk, when we get there, your module 1, of course, I will explain inherent risk, I will explain control risk, and also explain other risk types, right? So you should also be able to assess IT investment and expenditures, right? What is the investment policy in IT, and what is expenditure policy in IT? Now,
sorry, when when you speak about enterprise, are we speaking to the IT function or to the IT? Are we speaking about the IT as a
whenever you
function?
hear me talk about corporate, whenever you hear me talk about the enterprise, I'm looking at your organization.
Okay, you're looking at the organization.
Yes. Then whenever you hear me talk about IT function or IT department, I'm talking about your IT or IS department.
Okay.
Good. So this place is talking about the IIA 3-line model. The IIA 3-line model. IIA stands for what? Does anybody know? Institute of Internal Auditors, right? Institute of Internal Auditors. This is their 3-line model, right? It's talking about the governing body. Of course, we know that the governing body is made up of the board and some executive members. Then it says they are responsible to account to stakeholders for organizational oversight, meaning the oversight function is their core responsibility, right? So their roles ensure integrity, provide leadership and transparency. Then management, we're talking about the executive management, you're talking about line management or line managers, right? Their own responsibility is to help achieve the initiatives made by the governing body, right? So their actions include managing risk. They manage risks. Why do they have to manage risks? Because they want to ensure that organizational objectives are achieved. So talking about the 3 lines, the first line first line roles includes provision of products and services to clients. That is what management does. The first line roles is that they provide products and services for clients or customers. They also manage risk. That is their first line function. Their second line roles or function includes expertise. They provide expertise, support, monitoring, and challenges on risk-related matters. Those are the second line. Now, the people that provide the third line role, according to IIA, are the internal audit or auditors. Now, these guys provide independent assurance to management or to the board, right? So what are their roles? Third line roles include independent and objective assurance and advice on all matters related to the achievement of objectives. So, like we said, when you are talking about IS auditors or auditors in general, you are talking about you cannot divorce the independence clause or disassociate it from them. So the role of auditors is to provide independent and objective assurance, and they are providing this to the board of directors, right? They provide advice on all matters related to the achievement of those objectives, right? So information security governance, we also looked at it the last time, right? There is nothing much we didn't cover. We looked at this area. We also looked at effective information security governance. And we said information security governance, of course, we said it is a responsibility of the board of directors and senior management. Senior management, executive management, top management, they are the same humans. So information security governance is their responsibility. And then information security governance should protect information systems and the data itself. And then it says include strategic alignment, risk management, compliance, and value delivery through the development of the following, which we also looked at the last time, right? Now, look at the notes below. It says, since enterprises depend on IS for functional and operational activities, IS strategic processes and integral components within the enterprise governance structure to provide assurance that the business will be attained. So the whole idea of information security governance, right, is to provide assurance that at the end of the day, business objectives will be attained, because it's only when your information security is governed, it is only when your data and information are governed, that is only when business objectives will be attained. We also looked at strategic planning, and what I told you that when you're talking about strategic planning, another word for it is long-term planning. So it tells you that it is the enterprise long-term direction in leveraging IT to improve its business processes, and it will include the following. For them to plan long-term, they need to identify costs, they need to identify effective IT solutions to address the problems and opportunities. So when you're talking about long-term planning, you're looking at where or the long-term direction that the organization wants to go. Where do you want to be in the next 5 years as an organization? Then the second question that has to be answered is, how do you get there? Answer, by leveraging on information system or IT to improve the business processes, right? So all this we looked at the last time. Now it says your strategic planning must be fully, not just aligned, must be fully aligned with the enterprise goals and objectives. Again, alignment coming. When we started this module 2, I told you guys that please be on the lookout, because we cannot talk about a single thing in this domain really, without talking about alignment. So we're talking about strategic planning now, and we are saying, right, that your strategic planning should be fully aligned and consistent with the enterprise goals and objectives, right? How you are planning strategically in IT must be fully aligned, right, with your enterprise's goals and objectives. You say this involves key roles. This involves key roles for IT departments, managing the IT steering committee and strategy committee. These are the roles that are involved in planning strategically. Your IT department, your IT steering committee, and the strategy committee, right? So these are the things we covered in this area. We have done strategic planning. I'm just revising what we did. Now, well, let's talk about business intelligence. And from the foregoing, especially in recent time, business intelligence has become a broad field in IT. This broad field in IT encompasses the collection, analysis of information to assist in decision making and assess organizational performance. So the whole essence of business intelligence is to be able to collect and analyze information, collect and analyze information. But then why are you collecting and analyzing information? So as to be able to assist in decision making and assess organizational performance. That's the whole essence of BI. So in business, investments in BI, can be applied to enhance understanding of wide range of business questions. You want to have wide range of business questions answered, then you need to engage in business. You need to invest in business intelligence, which is the collection and analysis of information, right, that will assist in decision making and assess the organizational performance. So, like you have it before you, it says BI provides management with data and insights they need to make informed decisions about their future. Take note, provides management with what? Data and insights they need to make informed decisions about their future. If organizations want to become the preferred distributor of cement, an organization wants to become the preferred distributor of cement in Abia State in the next 2 years, right? They need to invest in business intelligence because they need to gather data and insights that they will need to make informed decisions about their future. They need to collect and analyze information that has to do with what? Abia State, that has to do with cement distribution, cost of cement, who are their distributors, how are the people in Abia State, are they really into construction? What are the construction materials that they prefer? Do they prefer cement to whatever? Then those are the business intelligence that they will need to collect and analyze them so as to be able to know or to be able to reach or make informed decisions about their future, right? So BI tools can help businesses in doing the following. One, identify trends and patterns. How are the people buying? In what period of the year do they buy cement, for example? Right? In what period of the year do they buy cement? For example, Igbo people, would want to complete their construction before December, so as to be able to go home, move into their mansions in December. Right? You need to know that that is a trend. That is the pattern of things in the southeast. Right? I want to complete this my house before December. I want to move in December. You need to know that's a trend in the east. Gather that information, analyze it, and harp on it. Right? So BI tools that can help business include identifying the trends and patterns. You also need to understand customer behavior, right? You also need to assess performance and identify areas of improvement. And then all the three above will enable you as a business, as a corporate enterprise, to make better or informed decisions, right? So for that reason, enterprises must design and implement a data architecture to deliver effective BI. They say you need to do what? Design and implement a data architecture to deliver effective BI. And there are two of such data architecture. One is the EDFA, and then the logical data collection, right? So, which we are going to look at soon. But let me also point out one or two things more off this record about BI or business intelligence. Now, in an organization, typical areas of application of BI include process cost, efficiency and quality, customer satisfaction with products and services offering, customer profitability, including determination of which attributes are useful predicators of customer profitability, right? You want to know the customers that are more profitable than the other one. Then staff and business unit achievement of key performance indicators, risk management by identifying unusual transaction patterns, and accumulation of sufficient loss statistics. So these are areas of application of business intelligence in an organization, likely areas of business intelligence. So the current interest in BI as a distinct field of IT, like I said when we began this topic, is due to a number of factors. One of the factors I must mention is the increasing size and complexity of modern organizations. That is one of the reasons for the current emphasis of BI. That's one of the reasons why BI has now become a distinct area of IT. Now, another reason why we are currently interested, organizations are currently interested in BI is because of the pursuit of competitive advantage. You are competing with 2, 3, 4, 5 organizations, right? And then another reason for the current emphasis on BI is because of legal requirements, laws that must be complied with. So those are the reasons for the current emphasis on business intelligence. And like I said earlier on, a complete data architecture consists of two components, because we are told that enterprises that want to build credible BI, they must design and implement data architecture to deliver effective BI. Now, we're saying that a complete data architecture consists of two components. The first component is the enterprise data flow architecture, that is EDFA, and the second component is logical data architecture. So even if ISACA wants to ask you a question on these, they would want to know that you know that the two components, they want to know that you know the two components of a complete data architecture, and that the first component is the EDFA, and the second component is the logical data architecture. And that is what is illustrated for you in the diagram, right? So those are the two components. Now, at this juncture, let us pause and discuss one or two questions, right? And let us see your extent of your assimilation. Okay. Are we there? We ready? Okay. The first question there says, as an IS auditor, how many of us are in this class now? Let me check. Oh, Olachi, still only you. Okay, Chi is here.
No, Chi is here now.
Oh, so she just sneaked in. Okay, I'll deal with that girl. All right.
Good morning, sir. Forgive
Morning,
me,
ma.
please.
How
Don't
was your
deal
week?
with me.
How was your
We
week?
thank God.
Welcome.
Thank God. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Morning.
Welcome.
Morning, Ola. Yeah.
All right. So now let's look at those questions. I'm hoping you can see my slide, right?
Yes, I can.
All right. All right. The first discussion question there says, an IS auditor is evaluating the IT governance framework of an organization. Take note of what you are organizing, because the key to passing CISA questions is, first of all, you need to understand the question, right? Now it says, an IS auditor is evaluating, and I hope you have started to go through past questions. They are key, right? Now, you need to know the psychology of testing you. An IS auditor evaluating the IT governance framework. That's what he is evaluating, the IT governance framework. He's not evaluating a software. He's not evaluating a database. He's evaluating the IT governance framework of an organization. Which of the following would be the greatest concern? That's how the questions are framed. To understand the question, this is what the guy is doing. It could be Chichi, it could be Olachi. You are evaluating the IT governance framework of your organization, right? Now, which of the following would be the greatest concern to you, right? Now, one, senior management has limited involvement. Two, return on investment is not measured. Three, chargeback of IT costs is not consistent. And four, risk appetite is not quantified. You are evaluating the IT governance framework of your organization. Which of the following would be the greatest concern? Ladies.
A.
I'm all ears. Huh?
I say A.
Any contrary opinion? Now, why did you pick A?
I wouldn't have picked A though, but I mean, since I can't see executive management here, I decided that this is the closest, because IT governance framework, IT governance should be is monitored or is put together by senior, at least executive management.
You say you didn't see executive management.
Yes, in my opinion. I mean, that's the word I was looking for.
See, executive management, senior management, top management, they are the same guys, though. Okay. So please don't let it deceive you. Okay. Whenever you see executive management, you don't see executive management, top management, senior management, they are the same guys in the same KDAO.
Okay.
Good. So continue with your explanation.
That's why I said that executive management and the board should be involved in, they are the people involved in putting together IT governance framework.
So what disqualified the other three options?
We're looking at governance now, not a return on investment or money related. I don't know. I don't know.
I agree with you.
Not say.
What you are evaluating is IT governance. I know the people that are responsible for IT governance are the board and the executive management or senior management or top management, right? So whereby you are talking about IT governance framework, the people that are supposed to be, actively involved, right? They only have minimal involvement, right? They had limited involvement. Then something is wrong. You understand? Because these are the guys that should, carry all the wahala for their head. But now they now have a limited or minimal involvement. Then something is wrong. Do you understand? So I go with you. A is the answer. All right? Congratulations.
Yay.
All right, let's look at discussion question 2. Which of the following IT governance good practices, take note, is also on IT governance. Which of the following IT governance good practices involves, take note, strategic alignment? Which of the following IT governance good practices involves strategic alignment?
Improves.
1, supplier and partner risk is managed. A knowledge based on customer, products, markets, and processes is in place. A structure is provided that facilitates the creation and sharing of business information. Top management mediates between the imperatives of business and technology. Which of the following IT governance good practices involves strategic alignment, long-term alignment?
It's not involved, it improves. And based on the explanation you did before, IT governance, I'll choose a D.
Choose a D. What are the justifications for choosing D?
Should I say that I'll choose? Sorry.
But before you now choose another thing, have you noticed here? Have you noticed here they use top management?
Yes.
Trying to confuse you, but don't be confused. The other place they use senior management. Now they're using top management. Next time now they might use executive management. All right, I'm listening.
That's you.
I've answered top management. I chose a D. I'm just using the idea of what he explained in the previous question and answer. IT governance, top management, and all of that. That was just not like I am 100% sure about it.
Ichi, talk, make we hear you. Provide a justification for your answer.
I said, in this case, Ms. Nalera, I said it's based on what you explained in the previous question, that IT governance and dealing with top management, senior executive, and all of those. So let's just say maybe it's just what I'm doing.
But what has it got to do with alignment?
It aligns with. Okay, so yeah, strategic alignment. You're aligning with with your business and technology. This is just me. So you're trying to see how IT governance. I know the framework on how it goes through the drawing and the processes. So I'm just saying that if the top management are involved in the business and technology, it will help to improve a strategic alignment of a company.
Okay. Alachi, any contrary opinion?
I don't even know, but I'm thinking. I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello?
All right.
So I said, can it be, I don't know, but I just thought about strategy when we spoke about BI, and I thought maybe B would be the answer, but I don't know. I'm just guessing.
You are guessing. That day, no guess. The question again says, which of the following IT governance good practices involves strategic alignment?
Improves.
Now, all of them are IT governance best practices. The four above, the four alternatives before you are all IT governance good practices. But they say, which of them improves, take note, strategic alignment. Now, strategic alignment, they are talking about a long-term alignment, a long-term harmonious relationship between A and B. So which of them improves a long-term strategic alignment between A and B? Is it supplier and partner risk management that would improve long-term alignment? Is it having a knowledge base of on customers, products, market, and processes, having them in place? Is that what would improve long-term strategic alignment? Is it having a structure, right? A structure being provided that facilitates the creation and sharing of business information that will improve strategic alignment? Or is it top management mediating between the imperative of business and technology that will improve strategic alignment? That's how we to analyze and understand the question. Now, top management mediating between the imperatives of business and technology means that top management is interested in what happens between the business and IT. It means that top management is interested in ensuring that the missions, visions, objectives, strategies, goals of IT department, top management is interested in those missions, visions, strategies, of IT department. They're interested in them being aligned with those of the entire organization. And then when such is possible, or when such is improved upon, it will improve strategic alignment. It will eventually lead to the attainment of organizational goals, missions, visions, strategies. So I am going with that D. All right. Now.
So the answer is D.
Yes. Now, okay. You also remember that we looked at IT governing committees, and then we looked at principally two of those ones. We looked at IT strategy committee, we looked at IT steering committee, and then I told you, ladies and the gentlemen that were with us, right, that these two committees belongs to two different structures, right? We were able to determine the fact that IT steering committee is a board level committee. Remember, IT strategy committee rather. IT strategy committee is a board level committee, while on the other hand, an IT steering committee is executive management level committee, right? Now, we also looked at their function or their roles, right? And then we said that part of the roles of the IT strategy committee includes the following, right? And while we're going to point out some of them, eventually you also need to look at them in your manual. So these are their responsibilities. We just want to quickly run through. If there's anything that is ambiguous, we want to harp on it a little. Now, Responsibilities of the IT Strategy Committee, because ISACA, I must tell you ladies, expects you to know these things for the sake of your examination and in practice. Provides insights, and another thing you need to note is the constituents. What is the makeup of these committees? So talking about responsibilities of IT Strategy Committee, it says provides insight and advice to the board on topics such as the following. Remember, they provide insight and advice to the board. And again, let me reiterate the necessity of a board having this committee. And I said, for example, in a country like Nigeria, most of these board members are not technology savvy. They don't know their left from their right when it has to do with technology. Some of them are businessmen, politicians, army generals, retired and serving, who have made some money, and then they will now want to throw this money into these organizations. So because of the number of shares they own, they become directors, members of the board. Now, for that reason, not knowing technology, there has to be a committee of experts that knows more than them to provide them with insight and advice on IT. Now, such advice and insight on IT include the following: the relevance of IT development from business perspective, alignment of IT with business direction, achievement of strategic IT objectives, availability of suitable IT resources, skill and infrastructure to meet the strategic objectives, optimization of IT costs, including the roles and delivery of external IT sourcing, risk return and competitive aspect of IT investment, progress on major IT projects, contributions to the business, exposure to IT risk, including compliance risk, direction to management relative to IT strategy, drivers and catalysts for the board IT strategy. So those are the areas that these committee provide insight and advice to the board. Now, the IT steering committee, on the other hand, is an executive management level committee, and it does the following: decides the level of IT spending and cost allocation, aligns, approves the enterprise IT architecture, approves the project's plans, budgets, settings, priorities, and milestones, acquires and assigns appropriate resources, ensures projects continuously meet business requirements, including reevaluation of business case, monitors projects plans to deliver expected value and desired outcome on time and within budget, monitors resource priority conflicts between enterprise divisions and the IT function and business objective, makes recommendation requests for changes to strategic plans, communicates strategic goals, contributes to management of blah, blah, blah. So these are the functions of the IT steering committee towards or to the executive management. This is how they assist the executive management. Now, how about the authority that they have, right? Authority for Strategic Committee advises the board and management on IT strategy, right? That's what they do. That's authority. They advise the board and management on IT strategy, right? This committee is delegated by the board to provide input to the strategy and prepare its approval. This committee also focuses on current and future strategic issues. On the other hand, the authority of the steering committee are the following: assists the executive in the delivery of IT strategy, oversees the day-to-day management of IT service delivery and IT project, focuses on implementation, right? Now, membership is key. Membership of IT strategy committee include board members and specialists who are not board members. Those specialists who are not board members may be drawn from executive management. There might even be a need to co-opt an IS auditor, the head of IS audit department. There might even be the need to co-opt an IT specialist, could be the head of IT or director of information technology, So that is the membership of the IT strategy committee. And like we said previously, right, a member of the executive who is IT savvy should chairman this board, this committee. All right. Now, membership of the IT steering committee would include the sponsoring executive, the business executive, that is key users, perhaps the head of department, and then chief information officer, the CIO. Key advisors are required. For example, there has to be somebody from IT audit, right? Audit, and then somebody from the legal, somebody from the finance. These are the makeup of the steering committee. Am I still visible? Hello? Am I still visible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. So we want to move over to organizational structures. Organizational structures. It's necessary for us to know, these things. Who does what? Necessary for us to know who does what, and then those are the things we want to look at now. And permit me, give me a minute. And you see, the reason why we want to look at these organizational structures is because as IS auditors, you will be dealing with the guys in IT. I cannot say this enough. And then for you to be able to deal with these guys in IT effectively, you need to know them. You need to know what they do and who they are, right? You need to know these guys, right? So that's why we want to look at roles and responsibilities. For example, you want to know board of directors, what are their roles, what are their responsibilities. You also want to know senior management, what are their roles, what are their responsibilities. Are their roles and responsibilities different than those of the other people in the organization? You need to know all these things. So that's why we want to take some time now to look at these organizational structures. We want to know their roles and their responsibilities, and so as to be able to, when we now are interacting with them, we want to know what to do and then how to relate with them. All right, so we'll be taking off with the board of directors. So what are the roles of the board of directors? What are the roles of the senior management? What are the roles of others? For example, the CIO or the CISO, what are their roles? Those are the things that should be of interest. Now, it says to accomplish effective information security governance, the board of directors and senior management must be involved in approving policy, in ensuring appropriate monitoring and reviewing metrics, reports, and trend analysis. So for there to be effective information security governance, the board and senior management must be actively involved. So the board of directors, what are their roles? Remember, that is the highest level of management, right? So, highest level of management. So, what are their roles? Now, first of all, talking about the board of directors and the executive management or senior management or top management, for things to work out well in an organization, the tone must be good at the top. For things, again, to work out very well in an organization, the tone must be good at the top. What it means for the tone to be good at the top means that it is these guys at the top, the board especially, that will come up with, standards, frameworks to be adopted, policies, right? Policies. So if they are interested in ensuring that things go well in the organization, then they must come up with policies, standards that will ensure that things work out well in an organization. But if, on the other hand, they don't do the right thing, then things will definitely not work out in an organization. I'll give you an instance. If management is interested in having an organization that is free of fraud, no fraud environment, then it is their responsibility to come up with policies and frameworks and good practices and ensure that these policies and good practices are enshrined and propagated and enforced in an organization to ensure that there are no fraud. But just as we know, if the head is rotten, then what do you expect of the bottom? If you have as board members and executive directors people that are not fraud averse, they love fraud, they welcome fraud, then things will not turn out well in an organization. But if you have members of an organization that are fraud averse, they discourage fraud, they sanction fraud, they provide discipline, and they ensure that policies are enforced, then you can rest assured that people down there, down the ladder, will not be interested in fraud because they know that there will be consequences, right? So the board must know the enterprise information assets and they are critical and how they are critical to business operations. If you have a board that doesn't even know that you have a database, if you have a board that doesn't even know that you are in a wired environment and not in a wireless environment, then that leaves so little to be desired. So your board must know the enterprise information assets and their criticality to the business operations. The board must approve the assessment of the protection of key assets. We are looking at the rules of the board now, and we say it is their responsibility to approve the assessment of protection of key assets, right? Any key asset could be a server, it could be a database, they will say this is the level of protection that should be accorded these assets. It is their responsibility. It says the board must demonstrate commitment to effective security governance. And they demonstrate effective commitment to effective security governance by coming up with security policies, ensuring that those security policies are enforced, by also committing funds and resources to acquisition or development of technologies that will aid the effective security governance. Now, the board is the accountable and liable body of the enterprise. Now, what it means is that the board is accountable and liable body. What it means is that accountability means that the board must be ready to take responsibility to ensure the organization follows the laws. They must be able to take responsibility and ensure that the organization behaves in an ethical manner. and that the organization also makes effective or efficient use of its resources. So these are the things that will make the board accountable. Now, the board must also provide penalties for non-compliance, right? And these penalties or sanctions for non-compliance must be defined, right? The board must ensure that they are defined. The board must also ensure that they are communicated and enforced from the board level down. So it's not going to be a situation whereby the board has come up with penalties or sanctions for non-compliance, and then they now treat themselves as sacred cows. No. Whatever is defined as penalties must be communicated to everybody and enforced from the board level down, right? So those are responsibilities of the board. Now, how about senior management? So let's look at the responsibilities of senior management now. Now, their responsibilities mainly is the implementation of effective security governance and defining the strategic security objectives of an organization, right? That, no doubt, is a complex task. So what that means is that senior management is responsibility for implementing the initiatives of the board. I repeat, senior management is responsible for implementing the initiatives of the board. So if the board has introduced a particular framework, for example, they want to implement COSO, right? If they want to implement COSO, which is an internal control framework aimed at deterring fraud, it is going to be the responsibility of senior management to ensure an effective implementation of COSO, right? So it says senior management must support security governance implementation. That's what we're talking about. Take note, they must support security governance implementation. Whatever that was initiated by the executive, they must support it, right? So the leadership of senior management must be able to support it. Now, it says senior management is also must work with business process owners, heads of department, to develop effective information security strategy. That's another responsibility. They must work with the functional areas to develop an effective information security strategy for the organization. Now, a successful outcome of the development of an effective security strategy, an effective outcome will be the alignment of information security activities in support of business objectives. What I have just said in English language is that, remember we said that senior management must work with business process owners, that is the head of the various departments, to what end? To develop an effective information security strategy. And we're now saying that an outcome of that, a successful outcome of that move will be the alignment of information security activities in support of the business objectives. So when they work with the head of department to develop an effective information security strategy, the outcome is that there will be an alignment between information security activities and the business. And as such alignment will support the business. Now, the next role we want to look at is the role of the information security officer, CISO. So who is a CISO? That's what we'll look at now. Now, the truth of the matter is that all organizations have a CISO. I repeat, all organizations have a chief information security officer, whether or not anybody goes by that label. Whether anybody goes by that exact title or not, every organization has a Chief Information Security Officer. So it means that that responsibility may be performed by a CIO, that is a Chief Information Officer, may be performed by a CTO, Chief Technology Officer, might be performed by a CFO, might also be even be performed by the CEO himself. There must be somebody that does the work of a CISO. Now, it says, whoever does that work, the scope and breadth of the information security, right, is a large one. The scope and breadth of information security is such that the authority and responsibility taken will inevitably make such a person a senior management responsibility. So whoever does the work of a CISO in your organization must be a senior manager, must be a senior management person. That person must be somebody in the C-suite. And we know somebody in the C-suite, all right? Person who is in the C-suite, we are referring to the guys that are, the guys that are in the executive management. So somebody in the C-suite, you are looking at the guys, the CIO, the CEO, the COO, the CTO, the CFO. Those are the guys in the C-suite. You understand? So whoever does the work of a CISO must be somebody up there. All right? So let us get more insight on this. And we have it here before you that this role may be combined with other executive roles, like I have told you. The CEO might also double as the CISO. The CTO might also double as the CISO, right? Now, this person is responsible for the scope and breadth of information security. Everything that has to do with information security, falls under his or her purview. This person or this role ensures alignment of business objectives and security activities. He ensures that whatever is being done about security activities must align with business objectives. So that's what this person is responsible for. All right, but let's not skip. There's one other role, right? I think. Okay. There are other roles, but let us now look at the role of IT responsibilities. We now want to go into the nitty-gritty of looking at the various roles. If that is all we are going to achieve today, you want to know. And I'm going to point out to you the reason why it is very, very necessary for you to know these roles. I'm going to point them out to you. We're going to look at these roles and responsibilities. These roles and responsibilities. All right? Now, before you, we have IT organizational responsibilities, right? Typically, depending on the size of the organization, I repeat, depending on the size of the organization, a typical IT department is headed by an IT manager, right? Or IT director. It may also be called Chief Information Officer or a CIO, right? So every IT department or IS department is headed by a CIO, Chief Information Officer, or they might call him an IT manager, or they might call him an IT director, right? So that is what happens. And then in your review manual, you should see a structure like this, right? If you see a structure like this. Now, let me point out something about this structure. This is what we call an organogram, or a structure or a chart. You find out that under the head of the department, you have risk management, you have application, you have data, technical support, you have user, right? And under that, you have security administrator. Under risk management, you have security administrator, you have disaster recovery coordinator, etc. You also have this or a replica of this in your manual. Now, let me point out some things about a structure like this, right? You know by now that as IS auditors, you would definitely be dealing with the guys in IT. Now, this is a structure or a chart of a typical IT department. Now, it says this is a chart for an IT department. Now, organizational chart, just as the one you are looking at, they are important items for all employees to have, right? So even you as an IS auditor should have the organizational chart of your IT department. Why? Because they will provide you with a clear definition of the department's hierarchy and authorities. For example, now you are looking at this particular organization. Let me just say this is for MTN or for Airtel, right? Looking at it now as an IS auditor, it will provide you with a clear definition of the Department of IT or Department of IT of Airtel, their department's hierarchy and authority. For example, to tell you that the man at the head of affairs is a CIO, and then under him are these other designations and roles and persons, right? Now, job descriptions will provide the IS departments, or job descriptions provide IS department employees, right, with a clear role regarding their roles and responsibilities, so that when they say somebody is a project manager, that should tell you what a project manager does, or that should even tell that staff member what is expected of him or her. If they say that person is an applications person, that should tell that person what is expected of him or her. That is job descriptions. Or if they say that somebody is a librarian, that should tell the person what he is expected to do for the organization. Now, in the same vein, you as IS auditors are also expected to know what these guys are expected to do or what they do for the organization. For example, if they say, this person is a librarian, and then you'll be wondering, what is a librarian looking for in IT department, right? Or whether this person is a user support personnel, or a user support manager, or a user support admin, or a system administrator, or a LAN administrator, or even a system analyst. You'll be wondering, what is this person doing for us? Take note, as IS auditors, you are expected to spend time at the auditees area to observe and determine whether the job description and structures are adequate. I repeat, you as IS auditors, you are expected to spend time in an auditees area to observe and determine whether the job description and structures are adequate. So at your auditees place, you have their structure or their organogram, and then somebody tells you that he's a librarian. Already you know what a librarian should be doing. You know the job description of a librarian. But you will find that person now working as a system analyst or working as a LAN administrator. Then something is off, right? Good. So as an IS auditor, you should be put on the inquiry. You should be put on the inquiry to know that something is off. Something is wrong somewhere. Something is wrong somewhere. Right? Good. So, but if you do not know, if you have not spent time observing them and knowing what is expected or what is happening, then you might not know. Okay? You might not know. So we now want to look at some of these rules so that when the time comes, you will know and you will remember that I mentioned them. Might not be particularly for the sake of your examination, but in practice, it's good for you to know who a development or support manager is. It's necessary for you to know who a security administrator is, or who a disaster recovery coordinator is. How about a data manager? Who is a database manager, administrator? Who is a technical support manager? Now, how about network administrator? You can see that these roles, like for example, you see network support manager. Under a network support manager, you have a system administrator. You also have a system administrator. You also have a network administrator. Then under a network administrator, you have system programmers. You have you also have system analysts, right? Then under development support manager, you have programmers, you have system analysts, you also have quality assurance. So what are these roles? What are these roles? Let us just quickly run through some of them. The very popular ones I know you know, we might not spend time on them, right? For example, who is a system development manager? Who is a system development manager? What does a system development manager do, right? What are the roles under him? What are the roles that report to him, right? For example, system development manager, this guy is responsible for programmers and analysts, meaning that programmers and system analysts report to a system development manager, as you can see it on that slide, right? System development managers, programmers and system analysts, and even security quality assurance people are reporting to this person. Now, if I ask you who a desk help person is, or a support admin person is, I know you know that one, but what are the roles of a help desk or support admin, right? It's a help desk. This is a unit within an organization's IT department. And this unit, what they do principally is to respond to technical questions and problems that are faced by users. So what I'm trying to do now is, if you notice, I'm trying to put flesh to the structure that you have before you, because if I leave them like this, you might not be able to appreciate it. So I'm trying to add flesh to the structure so that when you are looking at this structure and then you see help desk, you will remember that Neri told you what a help desk person does, right? So help desk is a unit in an organization that responds to technical questions and problems that are faced by users, whether internal users or external users. So when you call 181 or 180 and you get to speak to somebody, that is help desk. Or even when a computer answers you, an AI answers you, that is help desk. Even banks now have their own help desks, that AI will now answer you. Now, for help desks to be effective, there should be a procedure to record the problems that I have reported, right? Now, if that problem eventually was solved, there should also be a procedure to say this problem has been solved. But if it was not solved and it was escalated, then a process should be in place to escalate the problem, right? Now, there are other things that the help desk does. There are other things that the help desk does. For example, help desks, or you might, in some organizations, they might call them support admin. So when in your question you see support admin, you see help desk, they are referring to the same humans, right? That answers your questions and provides solutions. So help desks in some organizations are called support admin. Now, you say the following are included among the many activities. Let me now, let you know. Help desks in some organizations will get involved in the acquisition of hardware and software on behalf of end users. They will assist end users with whatever hardware or software issues or difficulties they may have. They may also help in training users on the use of certain hardware and software and even database. They answer questions, end user questions or queries, like I said. These help desks also monitor technical developments and then inform end users of developments. They determine the sources of problems with production systems, and then also they initiate corrective actions. And they inform end users of problems with hardware and software, or even database and even the operating systems, right? Then these guys will also initiate changes to improve efficiency. So these are roles of end users. Now we are going to look at who an end user is very soon, right? But you also want to wonder data management. You also see there, you see data manager, and then you see database administrator. So who is a data management? What does that role do? And now we have it on record that, yeah, what does a data management do? Okay, data management is responsible for the data architecture of your database, right? They are responsible for the data architecture of a large IT environment, and they are tasked with managing data as a corporate asset. So data management is tasked with managing data as a corporate asset. Of course, you know data is a corporate asset, a very important one at that. So data management is tasked with managing such data on behalf of your organization. They are also responsible for what eventually becomes the data architecture of your organization. Now, you also may have quality assurance manager. One day you may have quality assurance manager, and you may be wondering, what does a quality assurance manager do? Now, quality assurance manager is responsible for negotiating and facilitating quality activities in all areas of information technology. He is that man or that woman will ensure that everything that is done in IT department is of quality. That's what that person is responsible for ensuring, right? Now, you also may have the organization where you find yourself tomorrow. You may have a vendor and outsourcer management, right? Now, and that is due to the increasing outsourcing, including the use of multiple vendors, right? And what that means is that a dedicated staff may be required to manage your organization's relationship with vendors that are rendering one information system function to you or the other. So you might designate a particular staff to manage that relationship. Now, that will be dependent on the size of your organization. For example, if you are looking at on an organization that has maybe 10 to 20 members of staff, you might just dedicate somebody to vendor relationship management, right? So when that is the case, the functions expected of that person would include activities like acting as a prime contact person between the vendor and your organization, right? Now, that person will also provide direction to outsourcers or to those vendors on issues, and of course, if there are also issues, he will be in the best position to escalate internally so that something is done about the issue. Now, that person will also monitor and report on service level management, right? That person will also review changes to the contract between you and that vendor organization, right? And then if those contracts are being met, you will also report on that. Okay, so we are still on those responsibilities. For example, you might want to know who is an infrastructure operations manager or who is an operations manager. Well, an operations manager is responsible for computer operation personnel, including all staff required to run an information processing facility, right? So computer operators, librarians, schedulers, data control personnel, they are all going to report to an operations manager. I repeat, computer operators, librarians, schedulers, data control personnel, etc., they will naturally report to an operations manager, right? Then you may also have a control group, right? The control group is responsible for the collection and conversion of control inputs and then balancing of these. Let's look at more important roles and responsibilities. Like I said, in your organization, one day you might have a librarian, and then you are wondering, who is a librarian? What does a librarian do? Now, the librarian is required to record, issue, receive, and safeguard all programs and data files that are maintained on computer tapes or on disks by your IT department. For example, if you have bought, say, a 10-user antivirus software or a 5-user internet security software, and then it is our librarian that will be in custody of such a software. So that if Chichi now wants to update her internet security on her laptop, Chichi will now go to the librarian. The librarian will issue it to Chichi, right? And then Chichi will sign the librarian's register that she has been issued with this internet security. And then when Chichi is done installing it on her system, Chichi will now return it to the librarian. The librarian will now also sign that Chichi has returned it, and the librarian will keep it in safe custody until another user will come for it. So these are the things that a librarian would do. And you say, depending on the size of the organization, really, a librarian may be a full-time staff or may also be a member of the control section. Now, in very large organizations, librarian, you might have not just a librarian, but a team of librarians. For example, if you are looking at an organization like X, an organization like Facebook, an organization like Google, right? Then you will be looking at a team of librarians. So they really have a lot on their hands. And so to help them do what they're expected to do very well, management should provide them with the tools they need. Tools in terms of library softwares. Yes, there are library softwares, right, that would help maintain inventory of these softwares so that they know what they are dealing with, so that they don't issue the wrong software, right? So these use of libraries control software will also help the librarian to maintain version control or configuration management of the programs. So that is talking about a librarian. You also may have a data entry function. So what does your data entry function does? They enter data into the system, right? And data entry might take two forms. You might have batch processing. You might also have, online or real-time data processing. Take note. Professionally, we don't say online real-time. We don't say online real-time. That is tautology. It's either online or real-time. But you see some Nigerian educated professionals, they will go on national TV and say online real-time. I'm telling you so that you don't go out there and embarrass me. It's either online or what? Real-time. So there are batch processing of data. There is also online or real-time processing of data. I remember in the 90s, I had a stint. As a young boy, I finished secondary school. I went to do OND at Owerri to enable me know my maternal home. So after I came back to Lagos, I had a stint with an accounting firm. Then I left the accounting firm. I went to a bank, a now defunct bank. So what I noticed, to my amazement, was that the tellers then did not have computers in front of them, and now, just as we now have. So what they had in front of them were registers. So when a customer wants to come to deposit or withdraw money, the customer would naturally wait for his or her turn. And then if he's withdrawing money, he will fill a pink slip. If he's depositing money, he will fill a green slip. So when it gets to your turn, you go to the teller that is free, and then you register your transactions in a register, whether it's debit or credit. You write your account number, your name, and the amount involved. Then, if you are depositing money, the teller will count your money and keep it. And then will now stamp your slip, debit or credit, and give you back your own copy that you now leave. Then, after some time, I remember Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes will now come down from the information processing facility or the IT room of that particular branch. He will announce, batch up, batch up, batch up. What he was simply telling the tellers is that gather your batch. Then the tellers will now gather their debit slips in a particular envelope, count them, write the number, and then put them in an envelope and then sign off. Then also gather their deposit slip, the green slip, put them in another envelope, sign and write the number. And then when Mr. Holmes gets to that particular teller, he will hand over 2 envelopes to Mr. Holmes. Mr. Holmes will gather it from all the tellers and go back to the information processing facility. And then the guys at the computer room, where I never had access to throughout my stay in that branch, will now start to enter those transactions into the system. That was batch processing of transactions. So after about 2 or 3 hours, Mr. Holmes will now come back again, batch up, batch up, batch up. The same thing will happen. That was batch processing of data, data entry. But it's different from what we now have. When you walk into a bank now, you have all the tellers, they have a system before them. As you are being debited, you are receiving an alert, because immediately the transaction will hit your account. As you are debiting, as you are crediting, depositing money, before you leave, you receive an alert that the money is already in your account. That is online or real-time processing of accounts, of transactions, right? That is data entry for you. All right. You also have system administrators in some organizations. You may have one system administrator, depending on the size of the organization, or you may have a whole team of system administrators. Now, what does the system administrator do? So that when you walk into an IT department one day and somebody introduces himself or herself as a system administrator, what do you expect that person to do? What do you expect his or her job description or roles to be? The system administrators, without mincing words, is responsible for maintaining major multi-user computer systems, including local area networks. That is, system administrators maintain your LAN. Now, typical duties performed by system administrator or system administrators would include the following. Let me let you know some of them, but before then, please let me grab a cup of water. Sorry, a sachet of water.
Are they drinking sachet water where you are?
Oh. Now, are you girls, are you there or am I alone?
We're here alone now. In this
one? All right.
We're here.
Okay. Oh. All right. Let's move on. So, I was introducing you to the duties or typical duties of a system administrator. And I said such would include adding and configuring new workstations. So when you have a new system, a new laptop, that person that will come and configure it for you, set it up for you, if that is a language you understand, is a system administrator. And the person is also responsible for setting up new user accounts or user accounts. They will create you as a user in the system, give you a password which you expected to change, right? Of course, you have a user. Then they will also set up your rights and privileges in the system. You're able to read, you're able to write, you cannot delete, you cannot modify, right? A system administrator will also install new system-wide software, right? A new system, installing system-wide software means they will install it from a server somewhere, and then it will supersede or have influence over all systems, right? Performing procedures to prevent, detect, correct the spread of viruses, right? So whatever is done to detect and control the spread of viruses, or even to correct such, will be the duty of system administrators. Allocation of match storage spaces. Now, like I said earlier on, in small organizations, you might have one system administrator or two. But for large organizations like a bank, like an Airtel, right, you would expect them to be a whole team of system administrators, right? So those are the things that a system administrator does, right? So moving forward, you also notice that there is a security administrator somewhere. Where did I see? Yeah, this is security administrator. So what does a security administrator do? Now, first of all, I would like to let you know that security administration, or whatever becomes of it, will begin with management commitments. I repeat, security administration begins with management commitment. So what do I mean exactly by that? I'm trying to say that if management of what management now, I'm looking at your board and an executive management. If they are security conscious, if they are serious about security, right, it is going to be their responsibility to have in place frameworks, standards, best practices, and most of all, policies that are security centric, right? For example, does the organization have an IT security policy? Do they have data security policy? Do they have information security policy? Then that will show that your management is serious. But if the reverse is the case, then your management is not particularly serious about security. So that's what we meant when we said security administration begins with management's commitments. If you don't have a policy, if you don't have an IT security policy, you don't have information security policy, you don't have data security policy, then your management, is not committed to security, right? So for that reason, management must understand and evaluate security risk, develop and enforce a written security policy, right? And such written security policy must clearly state the standards and procedures to be followed, right? Now, at the same time, the duties of a security administrator, just as we want to look at them now, must be enshrined in the security policy. I repeat, the duties of a security administrator must be enshrined in the security policy, right? Now, the whole essence of security administration is to provide adequate segregation of duties, right? The security administrator, therefore, should be a full-time employee who reports directly to the director of the department, right? So ideally, a security administrator should be a full-time employee, and then he reports directly to what? To the CIO or to the IT manager or to the IT director. And that is, if you look at the boss there, the security administrator, right? Of course, that role falls under risk management. You should report directly to the head of the department. Now, like we said, ideally, there should be a dedicated security administrator. But unfortunately, that might not be the case in a small organization. It might not be practical to hire a full-time individual for this position, right? And so the security administrator function might, be done by somebody who also does something similar, like we're going to see. Now, but first of all, the security administrator's function will include maintaining access rules to data and other IT resources, maintaining security and confidentiality over the issuance, maintenance of authorized user ID and passwords, monitoring security violations and taking corrective actions to ensure that adequate security is provided, periodically reviewing and evaluating security policy and suggesting necessary changes to management, preparing and monitoring the security awareness program for all employees. Take note, all employees. Testing the security architecture and evaluation and to evaluate the security strength and to detect possible threats. These are all included in the duties or responsibilities of a security administrator, right? So those are their roles and their responsibilities, okay? So moving forward, we'll also quickly want to look at some other roles as we have them in your manual or in the chart, on the chart there. For example, database administrator or database administration. What does this role do? The DBA for short is the custodian of your organization's data. I repeat, the DBA is the custodian of your organization's data. Now, this role or this individual will define and maintain the data that are in your database. The DBA is responsible for the security of the shared data stored in your organization's database. The DBA is also responsible for the actual design, definition, and proper maintenance of your corporate database, right? Now, just like the security administrator, a database administrator is also expected to report directly to the director of that department. So whether you call him a CIO, whether you call him an IT manager, or whether you call him an IT director, just like the security administrator, a database administrator reports directly to that man or that woman that heads that department. Now, the roles of a DBA typically would include some of these that I'm going to call to your attention now. The first on my mind is that the database administrator is responsible for specifying the physical data definition of your database. This person is responsible for changing the physical data definition to improve performance. He or she will select and implement database optimization tools, test and evaluate programmer and optimization tools, answer programmer queries, and educate programmers on the use of database structure, implement database definition control and access control, update controls and concurrency controls of the database, of course, monitoring the database usage, collecting performance statistics, and tuning the database. These are all his or her responsibilities as a DBA. Also, it will include defining and initiating backup and recovery procedures of the database. These are the responsibilities of the database administrator. So you see, as it has to do with the database, this guy has the yam and the knife. I am now speaking to you one-on-one as IS auditors. The database administrator has the yam and the knife. And so as far as the database is concerned, this guy can do and undo. This guy has the tool, he has the technical skill, he has the experience and the knowledge to commit a fraud. I repeat, to commit a fraud and cover his tracks without you knowing as an IS auditor. That is why it's necessary for you to know what he or she does. That is why you need to exercise necessary caution when you are dealing with a database administrator. I told you last time that when you go to spool data from a database and then you are not sure whether that is the right database, just give them a disclaimer to write. I attest that this is the right database from which I am supposed to spool my database, to spool my data for analysis. If they sign without hesitation, that most likely is the database. But if they want to go and consult, if they refuse to sign, if they are hesitating to sign, most likely that is the wrong database. And whether they sign or not, keep that which they have signed, that paper, that disclaimer, keep it as part of your audit evidence. It's going to form part of your what? Audit work papers eventually. So that if one day it is found out that you were directed to the wrong database, right? That paper that they signed would have proved your innocence, right? So, like I was saying, the database administrator has the tools to establish controls over the database. And take note, he also has the ability to override these controls. I repeat, that's what I meant when I said the guy has a yam and a knife. He can slice it whichever size he wants, right? So the database administrator has the tools, and let me add, this skill set to establish controls over a database, and at the same time, it has the ability and the tools to override these controls. The database administrator, without missing words, has the capability of gaining access to all data. Take note, he has the capability of gaining access to all data, including production data. You cannot restrict him from this information or data from him. For crying out loud, he is the database administrator. He's responsible for the data definition of whatever data you have there. He is the architect, he did everything. So he has access to all the data, including the production data. He knows, as far as the information and data belongs to your organization, he knows more than any other person, right? Now, because it is not practical to prohibit or completely, prevent access to production data by the DBA, then the IS department must exercise close control over what that man does and what he is able to do, right? And that means there has to be extra controls put in place to regulate what that person is able to do. Now, such controls would include segregation of duties, management approval over whatever activities he or she is supposed to perform, right? Supervisory review of access logs and activities of the database. Detective controls over the use of database tools. These are controls that should be put in place by management of the IS departments. Now, as you are IS auditors, you might also provide further controls through regular audits of the database and the database administrator. You might also request that the database be rechanneled to IS audits or to internal controls, and then you have somebody sit down there to monitor what is happening in the database, right? These are ways of providing controls over the activities of a database administrator, right? Definitely, you will have a system administrator or a system analyst. A system analyst, rather, these are specialists who design systems based on the needs of the user. I told you earlier on about user requirements, that when user requirements for a new system or an intended system is got from various departments, those user requirements from the various departments will be turned over to the system analyst. And the system analyst will use those user requirements to design the system based on the needs of the users, right? So just as you're going to see in your module 3 from today, the system analysts are actively involved during the initial phases of your SDLCs. SDLC, just as you're going to see in your module 3, stands for System Development Life Cycle. And let me preempt you. What you'll be doing in your module 3 rather, you'll be introduced to project management. Because whether you are having a system developed for you or whether you are having it acquired, maybe that is you are buying off the shelf, they are projects. So it is good for you as IS auditors to have an idea of how to manage the project of system acquisition or the project of system development. So when you see SDLC in your module 3 from today, this afternoon, we're talking about system development life cycle. It is a project, right? So system analysts are involved because they are the people that they are the specialists that would design a new system that they are developing for you. So what does a system analyst do? A system analyst would interpret the needs of the user from the user requirements, and then they will now develop the requirements and functional specifications of the new system, such as high-level design and documentation. Now, these documents would now enable the programmers to create that particular application or system, right? So system development or system analysts will now develop the initial system and then turn over their work to the system programmer, who will now code or develop the system. That is what a system analyst does. Now, how about a security architect? Take note, a security architect is different than a security administrator. A security architect will evaluate security technologies, will now design security aspects of the network topology, access control, identity management, password management, and other security systems, and now establish security policies and security requirements. Those are the functions or responsibilities of a security architect. Now, if you also look at the structure there, I think there is also application development and maintenance manager, if I am wrong. Yeah, I have applications there, and I have development and support manager. So what does these guys do? Now, application development and maintenance. You have, first of all, application staff. Application staff members, these guys are responsible for developing and maintaining applications. Take note, these guys in an organization like Airtel, they are responsible for developing and maintaining applications. Now, when we're talking about development here, it may include development of new systems, of new code, or changing the existing setup or configuration of the application that will ultimately run in the production department. Now, take note, for these guys, management of your organization, management of IT must ensure that staff cannot modify production programs and application data. So your management must ensure that these application staff, they should not be able to modify production data or production programs and application data. If they do, fraud can be committed. So what do? Management must ensure that these application staff work in a test-only environment. Take note, as they are developing new systems or as they are changing new setup or they are maintaining or trying to configure a new system or reconfigure or fine-tune a system, they should not be able to modify programming or production programs or application data. And for that reason, when something must be done on an application, that application must be moved out of production environment to a test-only environment. So application staff must work in what? In a test-only environment. And when they are done with their configuration or reconfiguration or fine-tuning, what should they do? They should turn over their work to another group, right? It is not that other group that will migrate that application back to production. So what we are getting from here is that your application staff should not be able to have access to production environment. Whatever application they need to retune, to reconfigure, must be moved out of production to a test-only environment. The application staff will now work in a test-only environment, and when they are done with their work, they are not the one to move that application back to production. Another group will come and do it. Separation of duty. Now, you may also come across infrastructure development and maintenance. Now, the infrastructure staff. So infrastructure staff, what are they responsible for? Right? Now, it says infrastructure staff are responsible for maintaining the system software. Take note, infrastructure staff are responsible for maintaining the system software, including the operating systems. That is what they do. They maintain the system software, including the OS, the operating system, right? It says this may require them to have broad access to the entire system. And so there must also be control. So what is the control? Your IS management, your IT management must closely monitor the activities. The activities of who? The activity of the infrastructure staff, right? How do they monitor the activity? They must require that electronic logs capture all that they are doing with the software or with the OS, right? They must require that all that they are doing in the application or in the software or in the operating system must be captured by an electronic log. And of course, such electronic log must not be susceptible to alteration. You should not be able to alter that electronic log, right? So the staff should also have access to the system libraries of the particular software that they are working, right? So that is the infrastructure staff. Then in a typical IT department, you also there must be a network management team. If I'm looking at it very well, there is under technical support manager, you have network administrator, you have system administrator. So what is the whole idea of a network management or network administrator? What do they do? And why is it of concern today? Now, today's organization have widely despised information processing departments. A particular organization may have their IT department at their head office in Lagos. They may have their data center at Abuja or in Ghana. Of course, for telecoms, you have your base stations scattered everywhere. Then you might also decide to have, if you can afford it, you might also have a mirrored site. You might also have a mirrored site at Enugu, while your IT department is at on the island, right? So that's what we mean when I said earlier on that many organizations today have widely despised application information processing facilities, right? Now, for these various locations, they might make extensive use of a LAN. For example, every branch, if we're looking at First Bank, for example, and if First Bank has 200 branches in Nigeria, if First Bank has 200 branches in Nigeria, it also means that First Bank has 200 or more LANs, local area networks in Nigeria, right? So many of these organizations make extensive use of LANs. They make extensive use of WANs, which is wide area networks. They make extensive use of wireless communications that are established through the use of PDAs. PDA stands for personal digital assistants. They make use of mobile devices like your phones, like your tablets, like your laptops. These are mobile devices. Now, because these organizations make use of these IT technologies, there are needs for them to be administered, right? And such administration falls under the purview of network administrators, right? Now, the people that does the actual administration are the network administrators. Now, these network administrators are responsible for key components of the network infrastructure. And what do I mean by that? These network administrators are responsible for the key infrastructure of the networks. It means that they are responsible for administering your routers, your switches, your firewalls, your network segmentation are done by them. They do performance management. They are also responsible for remote access if somebody must work from home. Now, depending on the policy of your company, you might have a network administrator reporting to the director of your IT, of the head of the department. Now, in a more decentralized operation, right, a network administrator might report to the end user manager. What I'm now saying, let me give you an example. In a decentralized approach to network administrator, using a bank as an example, and I told you earlier on, using First Bank as an example, I say if First Bank has 100 branches or 200 branches in Nigeria, that each of those branches has a LAN. Each of those branches has a local area network. And then for each of those branches, there must be at least one network administrator that will be in charge of the firewall there at that branch, the routers at the branch, the switches at the branch, does the network segmentation at that branch, etc. So we're saying in a centralized approach to network administrator, that network administrator at that branch will report to the branch manager. I repeat, in a decentralized approach, that network administrator will report to the branch manager. But in a not so decentralized approach, every network administrator will report to the head of the information processing department or the head of IT. Now, what is of interest to us here is the functions of a network administrator, right? We have seen what and what he administers. He administers the LAN, he administers the WAN, he administers the wireless infrastructure of the organization, he administers the routers, the firewall, the switches that belongs to the organization, he does network segmentation, etc., etc. In addition, a network administrator will render you the following function: ensuring transmission links are functioning correctly, ensuring that backups are being done as at when due, ensuring that software and hardware purchases are authorized and installed properly. These are some of the functions of a network administrator. Now, in a small organization, right, it might not be practical to employ somebody and say, you are a network administrator, right? So what is most likely done is that in small organizations, right, network administration may be done or may be the responsibility of a security administrator, right? So in small organizations, the same person that does network administrator may also be responsible for the security administrator of that LAN. So for example, in a branch of a bank, the person that we call a network administrator there should also be the same person that would do security administration in that particular LAN, right? Now, the LAN administrator in such an instance should have no application programming responsibility. You should not be able to program an application, right? But he may only have a system programming or a systems programming and end user responsibilities. You know what we talked about, applications person, application staff the other time. And we say the application staff, they are responsible for recoding of applications, fine-tuning applications, and that they should not have access to the production environment rather. And that when they want to fine-tune an application, they can only do that from a test-only environment, right? So what we have learned here is that in a small organization, a security administrator can also double as a LAN, as a network administrator, right? So these are the job IT organization responsibilities. So far, so good, except if you have a question. before we continue with data ownership and custodians. Data ownership and custodians. For example, who...
Sorry, Neri. Sorry. Hello.
Yeah, I'm listening.
So the operations manager, what does he do? Does he manage all this? Somebody...
I know they hear you. Your line has a way of breaking. Take it again, please.
The operations manager.
Yeah.
Where does he feature in this whole thing?
The operations manager.
Yes.
You didn't see the operations manager.
Eh?
The operations manager is responsible for the day-to-day running of, everything that has to do with the computer. Okay, let me see if I will see something on the operations manager.
So what I mean is, does he manage like a group of these people? Like maybe everything happening. Okay, so maybe the data guy and the network guy and all those people. No, maybe the data guy because he's the one who's more current.
Let me now take you back to what I said about operations manager. Are you listening? I said an operations manager. I repeat myself. An operations manager is responsible for the computer operation personnel. I repeat, an operations manager is responsible for the computer operations personnel. Take note, including all the staff required to run an IT department or an information processing facility efficiently and effectively. That was what I said that time. I said all computer operators, all librarians, all schedulers that schedule jobs, and all data control personnel, they are all under an operations manager. They report to an operations manager. Should I repeat myself?
Yes.
So let me repeat myself. An operations manager, this guy is responsible for computer operations on a day-to-day basis, including all the staff that are required to run an information processing facility. It could be your IT department, it could be your data center, it could be your backup site, it could be your mirrored site. All the staff that are required to run such a facility are all under the operations manager. Example, all computer operators rather, all librarians, all job schedulers, and all data control personnel, they are all reporting are under the computer operations manager. Are we clear on that?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So we want to look at we now want to look at data ownership, owners, and custodians. For example, when they say data owner, when they say data custodian, who are we referring to? Who is this person? That's what we want to look at now, right? Now, the slide before you says data ownership. It says the classification of data elements and allocation of responsibilities for ensuring they are kept confidential, complete, and accurate. Now, a data owner is the one that will ensure that the data that belongs to his department or her department are kept confidential, they are complete, and they are accurate. Those are the jobs of a data owner. And so he is a person that has that department that you, Olachi and Chichi, belongs to. For example, Mr. Ogedengbe, right? And Mr. Ogedengbe would, as the data owner, will now say, Olachi, you can read my data, you can modify, you can edit, you can view. Chichi, you can read, you can view, you cannot modify. What is it trying to do? Because that is his responsibility. He's trying to ensure that his data are confidential, that they are complete, and that they are accurate. He might say, I'm the only one who can modify my data. It's all about ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, this will involve assigning ownership to the established accountability for protecting data to a specific employee who is aware of the assignment. The organization knows that as far as finance department is concerned, Ms. Ogedengbe is the head. As far as HR department is concerned, Chichi heads it. Admin department, Olachi heads it. Right? And so it makes the organization makes them accountable for the data belonging to those various departments. At any point in time, when we need our data, they should account for them. They should let us have them. I remember some years ago when I was taking a CISA class somewhere at Magodo. So we were discussing this kind of thing. We were discussing audit work papers. And we said that audit work papers, they must be filed away and kept in safe custody. And then one guy that time, what's that his name again? Is it Femi or Shegun? He was with GT Bank there. He said, Neri, that's the problem they've been having. When they go for an audit, they come back, they submit their report, and then when it is time for another audit and they need to go through those audit work papers, and they found themselves not being able to locate those audit work papers, prior audit work papers, they are no longer available. And I told the guy, that is because you did not make somebody accountable for them. What you should do in that instance is to make somebody accountable for them. You, Olachi, this is our audit work papers. They will be in your custody. When we need them, produce them, whether hard copy or soft copy. And Olachi is aware of that assignment. Olachi now becomes accountable. When we need those work papers, when we need those data, Olachi must give it to us. She has no excuse. Right? That is what is involved in data ownership. At that point in time, that data, Olachi becomes the owner. Right? That is how best to explain the concept of data ownership. Now, how about data owners? Right? And here, we're referring to managers and directors. Take note, managers and directors responsible for using information for running and controlling the business. They are the data owners. So if I'm a clerk somewhere, or I'm a supervisor somewhere, I cannot be a data owner, except if your organization does not know what it is doing, because my position should be way up there. Now, how about data custodian? How is a data custodian different than data owners? It says data custodians store, safeguard the data, including IS personnel, such as system analysts. Right? So these are the guys that store the data that belong to our organization. These are our data custodians. Right? So I hope by this, the three concepts has been demystified. Right? Now, how about segregation of duties? Segregation of duties. what is imperative for segregation of duties within IT or within IS. Now, it says segregation of duties, what does it do? It avoids the possibility that a single person should be responsible for diverse and critical functions in such a way that errors or misappropriations could occur and not be dictated in a timely manner and in the normal course of business process. I repeat, segregation of duties avoid the possibility that a single person could be responsible for diverse and critical functions in such a way that errors or misappropriations could occur and not be dictated in a timely manner and in normal course of business process. In other words, segregation of duties ensure that a single person is not responsible for doing 1, 2, 3 jobs. 1, 2, 3 jobs. Sensitive jobs. In such a way that if there is misappropriation of funds, then such misappropriation of funds or other malpractices can occur and will not be dictated in a timely manner or during the course of the business processes. Right? Now, duties that should be segregated include the custody of assets. They should not all be in the hand of one person. Authorization should not also be in the hand of that one person. And recording of transactions should not be in the hand of that one person. Olachi is responsible for custody of assets. She is responsible for authorizing who makes use of what. She's also responsible for recording transactions. In our local parlance, Olachi has the knife and the yam. In fraud examination, Olachi is a fraud in the making. This is an example, though. I'm not saying Olachi is a fraudster, right? But I guess we understand what I'm saying.
I hope so.
Right? So it's important for you as an IS auditor to obtain information so as to be able to assess the relationship among various job functions, responsibilities, and authorities, so as to be able to assess whether there is adequate SOD. Meaning that for you to be able to assess adequate SOD, you should be able to assess the relationship among various job functions. You should be able to assess responsibilities and authorities so as to be able to know whether there are adequate segregation of duties. For example, that's why we are saying that it's necessary for you to know those jobs and responsibilities we went through a while ago. You should be able to know who does what so that you can be able to decipher when somebody who is doing what he or she is not supposed to do as an IT specialist. Now, still on this, what happens if there is an inadequate segregation of duties? What risk does your organization stand to run? Where inadequate segregation of duties exists, this will result in misappropriation of assets. I'm sure you know that so well. There will be misstated financial statements. There will be inaccurate financial documentation, right? There will be undictated improper use of funds or modification of data, and there will be undictated or unauthorized or erroneous changes or modifications of data and programs. So when your organization refuses to enthrone and enforce adequate segregation of duties, you stand the risk of running the following risk, just as we have now established. Permit me. Oh. You know, when you talk too much like this, your throat will dry. I'm talking, some people are listening, enjoying themselves, sipping coffee. They may even have ordered shawarma from somewhere.
That's how it's supposed to be now.
That's how it's supposed to be. That's how it's supposed to be. Okay. All right. So like we said, where there is no segregation of duties, a lot will go wrong, and we have looked at the risk, right? So it means there has to be controls, because every IS department or every user department should be organized in such a way so as to achieve adequate segregation of duties. Because if there are no adequate segregation of duties, then a lot will go wrong, right? A lot will go wrong. So if you look at your manual somewhere, there is a segregation of duties matrix somewhere in your manual, and that segregation of duties manual, what it aims at telling us is that there are some duties that should not be combined with each other in IS or in IT. So if you go through that matrix, you see some duties that should not be combined with each other. Even though that matrix is not an industry standard, right? It is an illustrative one that illustrates potential segregation of duties issues. So as an IS auditor, I enjoin you to try to understand that matrix, because it will help you to understand functions of each of the designations, and then you know which one should not be combined. It's also equally important for you to understand the risk of combining functions that are indicated in the segregation of duties matrix that it says should not be combined. If you combine them, a lot may go wrong. A lot may go wrong, right? So there are segregation of duties controls, and that is where we will take off next time when we meet for this module, and that will be sometime in March. We will take off from separation of duties control, meaning what are those controls that will make separation of duties possible. This is slide what? Is this slide, is it numbered? All right, just please note that we are taking off from this topic, separation of duties control, right? That's why we're taking off from 2 Saturdays from now. Separation of duties control, that's where we're taking off from. And then after that, we'll look at some case studies. It is 3 minutes to 12. Please, let me have your questions. Let me have your questions, ladies, gentlemen. Let me have your questions for what we have covered today. No questions.
Sorry, Larry, please, did you say anything about governance in all the hierarchy that you put on in the organogram of the IT office?
Yeah.
Was there any governance function?
No, because that organogram was looking exclusively at your IT department.
Yes, I know. I'm speaking to okay. Unless it would be Yes, I'm speaking to governance in IT.
No, in
or
IT
should
department,
I say process or what? I don't know. Process.
In IT, you manage your IT specialist, right? Manage IT. Your IT specialist manage IT. Why those in the governance structure govern IT? So we were done looking at governance when we are looking at the roles of the executive management and the board. What we're looking at in those organogram are the job designations and the roles in a typical IT department, headed by an IT director, or you might call him a CIO, or you might call him an IT manager. We are not looking at the functions and the responsibilities of members of the board of directors, but functions.
No, that's not even what I'm speaking to. It's not that. It's not those. It's not that. This is a function in IT.
I'm listening.
Yeah, so it's a function in IT governance. They take care. I mean, maybe they look at processes within the IT department.
I mean, those guys who read out like system analysts, whatever.
No.
What?
Somebody who monitors what's going on with every department, and if there's any need for maybe changes, something like that.
I didn't get what you said. Sometimes your line will break
like
off.
Quality assurance. I'm not sure.
Yeah, quality assurance. Okay. We didn't look at quality assurance.
Yeah, I saw it there. I know I saw it there.
Okay. Maybe I skipped it, but there's a role for quality assurance. There's a role for quality assurance. Let me see. I know there's a role for quality. There's a role for quality assurance, right? For example, quality assurance personnel, their task is usually two. It says their task is usually they perform two distinct tasks. One, quality assurance, and then quality control. Under quality assurance, they help the IS department. Take note, under quality assurance, they help the IS department to ensure that personnel are following the prescribed quality process. That's what they do.
Exactly. Okay.
And under quality control, which is the second distinct task, they are responsible for conducting tests or review to verify and ensure that the software is free from defects and meets user expectation. This could be done at the various stages of the development of the application system, but it must be done before the program are moved into production. That is what quality assurance does.
Okay.
Thank you very much for pointing it out.
Thank you.
Maybe I skipped it, right? So the quality assurance group is in charge of developing, promulgating, and maintenance standards for the information system function, right? So that is what they do. Now it says further, let me give you more information. It says the group also provide training in quality assurance and procedures. The quality assurance group can also assist by periodically checking the accuracy and authenticity of the input, processing, and output of the various applications. The group should be independent, and it may equally be part of the control group. Now, in small organizations, just like any small organization you can think of, the individuals may possess more than one role. However, under no circumstances should an individual perform a quality review of his or her own work. Do you understand what that means, Olachi or Chichi? Under no circumstances should an individual perform a quality review of his or her own work, meaning that you cannot be a judge in your own case. So that is what it means. All right. Thank you very much for pointing it out. It's your break time now.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So you Nonso will be with you from 1. We'll be introducing you to module 3. So do have a great week ahead of you. Thank you very much for being part of the class.
Thank you. See you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.
Yeah. See you next week.
Not you now. You said next 2 weeks' time.
That is for module 2. Module 1 next week. You don't want to see me again, Abby? Okay.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I don't understand how you people are doing it. You just pick any module and just why aren't you going in any order?
No, we don't pick any module. I am responsible for modules 1 and 2.
I know. Right? I mean,
personally I'm alternating them. Right?
Okay.
I'm alternating them. Module 1 this week, module 2 next week. Module 1 the upper week, module 2 the following week. But Nonso coming in now, Nonso is handling just one module. So Nonso is taking you